Have the latest snapshot on the health of the housing market in Canada. The Canadian Real Estate Association has just released its latest report for the month of October. And of course, Scott Peterson is following this story for us. He's going to break down all of the numbers. How do things look, Scott?
They looked a little bit lackluster as we head towards the end of the year. You know, sales are down, prices are down, but, you know, we're still seeing some solid, you know, we're not seeing dramatic declines either way. But let's take a look at the numbers out from the Canadian Real Estate Association this morning. This is a monthly report that they produce every single month. The natural or the national home prices, for example, or sales are down 5.6%. That's month over month. Year over year, they're pretty much flat. They're at 1% since this time last October. So pretty lackluster there.
People are just going to stop buying things. Like if this keeps up, there's going to be no consumers left to buy stuff. I think that's something the market seems to completely forget about right now, because they're all fighting up against every other larger industry. They forget that if they don't give people enough money, people don't have enough money to buy the things that people are selling. This is kind of a what is it called? A zero-sum game. That's where most of these companies are playing. That's where most of the people that I've worked for too, most of the companies that I worked for, that's how they're living and how they're running their businesses, is that everything is a zero-sum game. They must maximize internal profits and minimize external economic forces. That's not what you want. You want to maximize external forces, minimize internal expenses. Like, that's a huge one. If you minimize external expenses, then you maximize profits that way, as opposed to just bleeding your own company out, bleeding everybody else out just to get out of the country and buy your yacht somewhere else. And that's thousands of people inside these companies are attempting to do that, which is bad incentive. Really, it's really bad incentive. Something I've always thought about, and something that's always a weird thing, is that a lot of these companies, their job is day in and day out to figure out how to take as much money from you as possible. And if that's literally everybody, then everybody else who doesn't have day in and day out to think about how to make as much money as possible, they just get taken advantage for. The housing market is one of those things. If you have somebody that all day, every day, they can look up prices, they can manage prices, they can figure out the exact cost of things here and there, and then you've somebody else who just has to go to work at McDonald's or go to work at whatever fast food place or whatever store or whatever warehouse they're working in or whatever even construction job, then you're at a disadvantage. Those people that are actually buying and building things are at a complete disadvantage. And you could say that's the way it is in every single market, but housing is not really something that innovates and maximizes profit in its own efficiency. You can't buy a house and then make more money from making the house better. You actually make more money from making the house worse.
Well, for the first month since March, are down 2.3% month over month, as more people are sort of holding back in what they perceive as a buyer's market. And CREA says they might not return until the spring. Prices probably more near and dear to anyone with a home or looking to buy one. $656,000 is the new national home price. That's up a meager 2% from this time last year.
So crazy.
And let's not forget that the record home price was just over $816,000. That's what that graph represents there, as far as you can see the peak there of the highest point of the graph, and it continues to come down, and that's inversely.
It is so cheap to build a house properly if you take away all of the middlemen that are involved. So cheap. We're talking like to build a physical house, dirt cheap. To bust down the trees in the area, to develop a little road, only a few $100,000. Okay, $200,000-$300,000. If you remove all of the red tape and regulation, which is what you don't want, okay, then you get a house for a few $100,000 if it's built properly. That's a huge thing. The house has to be built properly. Add all the red tape and regulation, add the cheeky gatekeeping that a lot of these companies are doing, which they do deserve. They're building things that didn't exist before, so they do deserve compensation. And you're seeing prices that cost Canadians a lifetime to earn. An actual lifetime to earn.
Relational to what the interest rates were doing from the Bank of Canada. We saw the interest rates going up 10 times, and hence we saw the prices come down somewhat dramatically, about 161,000 per home. Now, Korea says that these...
Like, look at the pricing here. 2020, yeah, it's coming back down, but what does that mean? That's like being in 2017 and being like, oh, prices are coming back down. That doesn't mean anything at all. So...
price declines are due to...
Although what we are seeing is volatility, increased volatility, which is good. For a market that's overinflated, volatility is good. Not if you're in the market, because if you're in the market, then signs of... But, you know.
The fact
market
that
is what it is.
Bank of Canada might continue to raise rates. It's still uncertain whether we will have another rate hike or whether they will signal early next year perhaps that the rates will come down. Everything is dependent on that. And they're also seeing some softness continuing in the big province of Ontario where most of the sales take place, but they're also seeing it spread to parts of BC as well. But really they point their finger directly to the Bank of Canada that until we have some direction that maybe interest rates aren't going up, we might then see a pop of real estate, both prices
and what everybody's doing, even the experts, is they're waiting for someone else to do something about it. And unfortunately, that's not the way a productive economy works. A good productive economy, the individuals inside the economy, everybody thinks they can do something about it. Everybody thinks that they can make their country a better place. Right now, Canadians don't think they can make their country a better place, and so they're taking from each other. This country is just being eaten apart slowly from the very little resources that are very little human capital that it has, and being taken for its resources. We need to like maximize those resources if we ever want to, like, all of the trees, all of the oil, all of the stone, everything needs to become housing and infrastructure. The stuff needs to become useful stuff, but it's not.
Sales perhaps this spring, traditional earth is, you know, the traditional buying season of the year.
Okay, and Scott, also financial markets are up and running. What are you watching for?
We're watching for U.S. retail sales. They were down 0.1%, not as much as people were expecting. And this is an important barometer of the health of the U.S. economy and for all economies for that matter. 2/3 of economic growth depends on you, me, and everybody else spending. So that's a solid number. And the markets are reacting to it in the sense that they're worried that it's so strong it might potentially tweak the U.S. Federal Reserve to raise interest rates somewhere down the road. But in the meantime, we're seeing the price of oil coming down dramatically this morning, down about $1 a barrel, $77 and change. We have the Canadian dollar flirting right around 73 cents US. And let's get to the rest of the markets because they're still focused on earnings. Lots of earnings still coming out. We have from Loblaws, their third quarter profit up to $621 million. Metro profit up there in their fourth quarter to $222 million.
Wait, what am I looking at? TSX most activity. S&P, Venture, where is he seeing these?
TSX up 101 points. We have the S&P, the Dow, and NASDAQ also all positive on and after yesterday's rally where we saw the TSX up 300 points and the Dow Jones up 500 points. So still some enthusiasm for profits and corporate profits continuing to trickle in.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Arthur.
I don't know how I feel about that.